She'd always been invisible. She grew up scrubbing floors in schools where she never got to study, memorizing dictionary words while washing dishes, and learning languages in a hidden corner of the library where no one noticed her. For years, she was told her place was in the back, quiet, obedient, unnoticed. But life has its own plans. And when a multi-million-dollar deal nearly collapsed due to an unexpected twist, it was her, the coffee lady, who stood up. With a steady voice, flawless accent, and courage in her eyes, she changed the direction of an entire company. What no one knew was that this moment was just the beginning, because sometimes all it takes is a chance for silent talent to finally be seen. No one expected the problem to hit on that day. Benjamin Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell International, was known for his almost surgical precision in handling million-dollar negotiations. A real shark in the market, his name was synonymous with success and strategy. But in that glass-walled conference room of a Manhattan skyscraper, something fell off. Tension hung in the air. Watches all ticked at the same time, eyes darted nervously around the room, and the absence of one key person was threatening to bring everything down: the interpreter. The room was filled with voices in different languages, impatient whispers, and awkward gestures. Representatives from a major Asian corporation, who had flown in to close a billion-dollar partnership, were already exchanging frustrated glances. The meeting had been scheduled for months. Every detail had been planned meticulously, but no one anticipated that the interpreter would get into a car accident that very morning. And with him gone, so was the hope of translating those technical clauses, numbers, and intentions that stood between the two companies in a historic deal. Benjamin paced back and forth. With each step, his eyes scanned the tense faces of his executives. He felt powerless, and that was something he simply didn't tolerate. He was used to control, dominance, victory. But now, in that very moment, every attempt to improvise a translator using apps or software was failing miserably. It was like trying to put out a wildfire with a glass of water. Time, once his ally, now felt like a merciless enemy. Words tumbled between English, Korean, and business jargon. A junior translator tried to step in, but her nerves only made things worse. One of the foreign reps checked his watch and muttered something that sounded like a goodbye. Benjamin snapped his fingers. "We can't lose them now," he said sharply, sweat already forming at his temples. His eyes searched the room for a way out, but every door to a solution seemed locked tight. It was like watching a mountain crumble, rock by rock, right in front of him. And then, something unexpected slipped in like a sliver of light through a forgotten crack. Amid the chaos, the shuffling assistants, rustling papers, and frantic movement, someone wasn't moving. Completely still, as if she didn't belong in that scene, as if she floated above it. It was her, the woman who served the coffee, who set cups on tables and folded napkins that no one ever used. No one knew her name. Few ever noticed her. But that day she saw everything, and she listened. Her name was Olivia. Hair pulled into a neat bun, clean uniform, eyes alert. She understood exactly what was going on, every poorly translated word, every misinterpreted phrase. Her heart pounded faster by the minute, not because of the crisis, but because of the storm inside her. Should she step in? Could she? No one had ever given her a voice. What if she failed? What if they laughed? The echoes of a hard life rang in her mind. Stay in your place, old voices warned. But something inside her had already started to shift. The meeting was about to be called off. One of the Asian businessmen stood up. From across the room, Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. They were leaving, and with them, the only chance of saving the deal. A contract that would bring stability to thousands of families. A major win for the employees. A victory for the entire country. And yet, no one had a clue what to do. Benjamin stared at the table like a man searching for answers in a place where no more questions existed. And it was in that exact moment that everything began to change. Olivia pressed her fingers against the steel tray she was holding. Her palms were sweaty. She looked around, took a deep breath, and took a step forward. To the world, it was just the sound of a shoe touching the floor. But to her, it was a leap, a silent scream of faith. a bold move breaking years of invisibility. She walked between the executives as if floating. No one understood what was happening until she stopped, looked the CEO straight in the eye, and said, "I can help." "You speak Korean?" Benjamin asked, stunned. She nodded calmly, though her heart was pounding like that of a warrior heading into battle. The whole room froze. Every eye turned to her. The coffee woman, the invisible one. And right there, in the middle of the shock and silence, the true performance of courage and resilience began. And no, there was no script for what came next. No one knew where that confidence came from. Olivia didn't have a Harvard degree. She had never worked in top-tier corporations. But life, with all its twists and rough edges, had taught her what no university ever could: the power of persistence, the value of quiet effort, and the beauty of learning when no one's watching. She stood at the head of the table like she belonged there. Her eyes met those of the Korean businessman, and then she spoke. Each word landed with surgical precision. "He wants to know if the exclusivity clause includes the soul branch," she translated, her voice steady. A murmur rippled through the room. Executives exchanged glances. Was this really happening? Olivia, the woman who until that moment was only noticed when the coffee ran cold, was now leading a meeting that had millions of dollars on the line. And the most incredible part? She did it with calm, with clarity, with the authority of someone who knows pain but refuses to let it define her. Since she was a child, Olivia had hidden books in the same bag she used to carry her serving supplies. English was her first language, but her love for other tongues began when she heard a French song on the kitchen radio at one of her cleaning jobs. From then on, she collected sounds and meanings like someone collecting chances to rewrite their life. People thought it was strange. "Why bother, girl?" they'd mock. She would just smile. She had faith. Faith that one day it would all make sense. And now it did. The table came alive again. Documents opened, clauses reviewed, doubts cleared. And there she was, the quiet bridge between two very different worlds. Benjamin watched her in silence. It was like watching a painting come to life, brushstroke by brushstroke. The same woman who mopped the floors of his home was now, through words and courage, piecing together the most important deal of his career. And he, who had walked past her so many times without a single "good morning," now couldn't look away. As she translated with ease, Olivia was holding back an earthquake inside her. Her hands trembled behind the hem of her uniform skirt. But on the outside, her posture was flawless, because she knew this moment wouldn't come again. She knew that real triumph doesn't arrive with announcements or spotlights. It comes quietly, in the details, in the courage to do what's right, even without permission. And without realizing it, she was teaching that room full of suits one of life's most valuable lessons. "Where did you study?" one of the attorneys asked, clearly impressed. "Online," she replied, without taking her eyes off the paper she was translating. It was true. Years of videos, podcasts, and books borrowed from the public library. A daily grind, relentless. While the world slept, she studied. While others relaxed, she translated fake contract for practice. Life had been hard on her, but she never used that as a reason to give up. At one point, one of the Korean businessmen made a joke in his native language. The Americans didn't get it, but Olivia did. She laughed, then translated it softly with grace. And right then, the icy corporate atmosphere started to thaw. The business people began to see each other as human beings. And that, in any boardroom, is priceless. Benjamin almost smiled. He never imagined that the woman from the kitchen could understand human connection better than anyone in the room. But she did, because she had lived what it means to not be heard. The way people looked at her began to shift, from doubt to respect, from superiority to admiration. Olivia didn't wear makeup, didn't own fancy suits, didn't have a prestigious title, but she had something many in that room had lost long ago: sensitivity. And when combined with her persistence, it changed everything around her. Within minutes, she was no longer just the help. She had become the bridge, the key, the difference between failure and success. The clock kept ticking, but now in their favor. Benjamin, who had been tense, leaned back in his chair. His eyes followed her every move. Even the most arrogant assistants had gone quiet. It was like watching a film that no one expected much from, but somehow turned into an epic. Olivia hadn't just translated words. She had saved the company, though no one dared to say it out loud just yet. And as the meeting progressed and the contracts finally began falling into place, something new hung in the air. A feeling no one could quite name. Maybe it was reverence, or maybe shame for not having seen her sooner. But the truth was, what came next would be even more astonishing. Because that woman, she hadn't shown everything yet. And the best part? This was just the beginning. When Olivia finished translating the final clause, the whole room seemed to forget how to breathe. A solemn silence settled, as if everyone there was witnessing something sacred. No one dared speak, not even Benjamin. He, who had always commanded every room with his voice and presence, now felt small next to this woman in a plain uniform. It was as if a veil had lifted, revealing the true strength that had always been there, hidden in plain sight. The deal was finally sealed. Papers signed, quiet sighs of relief exchanged. But what stuck in everyone's mind wasn't the numbers on the contract. It was Olivia standing there, calm and composed like she belonged in that room all along. She speaks 3 languages, some whispered. But it wasn't just that. It was the way she carried herself, the calm in her voice, the precision with which she handled even the most complex phrases. The hard life she'd endured hadn't hardened her. It had shaped her strength. Benjamin stood up slowly. He walked toward her like someone approaching something sacred. He wanted to say something, but the words didn't come. She gave him a small smile. "You saved the day," he finally murmured. She just nodded, without pride, like someone who simply did what needed to be done. In that moment, Benjamin felt something he wasn't used to feeling: genuine gratitude. Not the polite, formal kind, but the kind that comes from deep inside, like a quiet breath of redemption. Looking at her, he realized how many times he had walked past Olivia without even noticing her. How often life had handed him diamonds wrapped in simplicity, and he turned them down because he was too busy judging the packaging. That woman, who had faced the world with faith and persistence, had just shown him that real achievements don't scream, they act. And even in silence, they're strong enough to shake the foundations of what seemed unshakable. One by one, the directors began to approach. Some asked where she had learned to speak Japanese, in addition to Korean and English. She explained, with disarming simplicity, that she devoured secondhand books and dictionaries. "It was my way of escaping reality," she admitted, eyes lowered. And for a moment, the room wasn't a boardroom anymore. It was a stage for humility, where everyone had to face their own blind spots and biases. There was a pause when someone asked why she had never mentioned her skills before. Olivia shrugged. "No one ever asked," she answered, with the calm of someone who knows the weight and worth of words. The phrase hit Benjamin like a stone in the chest. It was true. For years, he had led teams, managed talent, built empires, but never looked at the invisible ones. He never imagined brilliance could be hiding in the places no one looked. And there, that afternoon, Olivia transformed. Not because she changed who she was, but because the world finally saw her. Her achievements, born of daily effort, now had an audience. But she wasn't looking for applause. She wanted dignity. And in that room, for the first time, she felt like she was receiving it. The Korean businessmen made sure to thank her personally, in their language, with full respect. She responded with a small nod and a smile that seemed to say, "I've been preparing for this moment my whole life." Benjamin returned to his chair, but his mind couldn't let go of what he had just witnessed. Something inside him was shifting. A realization was sinking in. That someone's worth can't be measured by a badge or a salary. That true greatness is often hidden under the plainest appearances. And that maybe, just maybe, the biggest mistake of his career had been ignoring those just a few steps away, already blooming with talent. Olivia's story spread quickly through the company halls, but she didn't seem different. She kept doing her job with the same care. Only now, there was a new light in the eyes that met hers. A quiet recognition, a kind of respect that doesn't need words to be understood. And even though no one said it out loud, everyone knew. That day, she didn't just change the course of the company. She changed the course of her own story. But what no one saw coming was what came next, because that simple gesture was about to trigger a chain of much deeper changes. And not even Benjamin, with all his years of experience, was ready for what was about to unfold. The meeting ended without applause. No big speeches, no forced smiles. But there was something even stronger in the air, a silence filled with reverence. It was like everyone, without needing to say a word, understood that the moment deserved respect. Benjamin approached Olivia with a different look in his eyes. Not the look of a boss, but of a man who, for the first time in a long time, was ready to truly listen. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone about your skills?" he asked, voice tight with emotion. Her answer was like a velvet-covered dagger. No one ever asked. The words hit him like lightning. Short, simple, definitive. It wasn't an accusation, just a quiet truth. How many Olivias had he overlooked in his life? How many brilliant professionals had walked his halls without ever being given a chance to show who they really were? Standing there, in front of the woman who had just saved his deal, Benjamin no longer saw a staff member. He saw a mirror, reflecting all the opportunities he'd missed simply by not paying attention. For years, his company had been built on efficiency, on merit measured by outcomes, and on talent hidden behind polished resumes. But Olivia shattered all of that with just one look. She didn't need an MBA to prove her worth. Her credibility didn't come from a prestigious school. It came from her faith, her persistence in studying when no one was watching, and her drive to keep going when everyone expected her to give up. And that, by itself, was worth more than any framed diploma. Most of the staff quietly left the room, but Benjamin stayed. He didn't just want to thank her. He wanted to understand. Olivia told him she started working as a teenager. Her mother was a janitor at a school, and she'd sneak into classrooms to listen to lessons. She read forgotten books in the library, practiced pronunciation with old movies, and invented dialogues in her head to rehearse. All of it in silence, without ever complaining about the hard life she had to live, without ever letting bitterness take root. She never expected recognition, never dreamed of being anyone's hero. But when she saw the company on the verge of collapse, she knew she couldn't stay quiet. "It was the right thing to do," she said simply. Benjamin nodded, speechless. It felt like he was relearning what truly matters. In front of her, all his power and pride fell fragile. And that didn't make him feel small. It made him feel like, maybe for the first time, he was becoming a real leader. News of what Olivia had done spread like wildfire through the office halls. But she didn't act any different. She kept doing her job with the same gentle care. She turned down interviews. She didn't want to be a symbol. She just wanted to keep being herself. Still, Benjamin insisted on talking more. He invited her to lunch with him and the board. Not for show, but because he wanted everyone to hear her story. And in that upscale restaurant with a panoramic view, while the executives cut into $50 steaks, Olivia told them how she used to sleep on the library couch to save on bus fare. Some were moved to tears. Others just went quiet, ashamed perhaps. Benjamin, on the other hand, couldn't take his eyes off her. It wasn't just admiration. It was something deeper. It was learning. Olivia had taught him, and everyone in that room, that talent doesn't come with a uniform, that strength can be sitting right next to you, and that faith often moves more than financial capital. Sometimes, the most valuable asset in a company isn't found in profit margins, but in the people it never bothered to truly see. After that day, Benjamin started walking the company floors without his usual entourage. He greeted the receptionists by name, sat in the break room to hear stories. He called a meeting with the HR leaders and said, "I want to meet the invisible ones." A simple gesture, but one that said everything. That was the Olivia effect. What started with one quiet translation was now spreading like a silent wave of transformation. But not everything would be easy, because when truth comes to light, it can also make people uncomfortable. And Olivia's new role in a world that once ignored her began stirring up mixed emotions. Admiration, yes, but also envy. And that, Benjamin didn't know yet, might come at a cost. From that moment on, nothing was the same. Benjamin Hartwell's company, once known for cold efficiency and cutthroat results, now breathed humanity. Olivia, who had once gone unnoticed in the hallways, became a symbol of something greater. The real possibility of transformation through perseverance, effort, faith, and relentless drive. And the most beautiful part? She hadn't changed at all. Same calm posture, same quiet voice, same uniform, now free of prejudice. There was no flashy promotion, no speeches in crowded auditoriums, but there was respect, the kind you don't buy or force, the kind you earn. Olivia started being brought in to consult on international negotiations. The board wanted to understand how she had taught herself so much. And for the first time, she received a new company badge. Not with a fancy title, but with her name written correctly. And for someone who spent a lifetime being called the coffee lady, that meant more than any job title ever could. Benjamin, in turn, became a different man. Not because of the numbers, although, to be fair, profits soared after the company's cultural overhaul, but because he'd learned to see the invisible. He launched a training program for entry-level employees, set up study rooms, hired instructors, offered scholarships. When asked what inspired him, he always gave the same answer. A woman taught me the power of asking before judging. Olivia, however, turned down the spotlight. She refused to be the company's ambassador, declined the talk show invitations. She preferred to help quietly behind the scenes. She started mentoring other workers with hidden potential, became a guide to young immigrants who, like her, worked in silence while dreaming of just one chance. And every time she saw someone rise, tears quietly welled up in her eyes. Because only someone who's survived a hard life, who's held pain in their teeth and used faith as armor, truly understand what it means to see another person finally claim their place. One morning, a senior executive approached her in the elevator. With a sheepish smile, he said, "I should have listened to you sooner." She simply replied, "Maybe you weren't ready," and walked away. Because Olivia didn't hold grudges. Her strength didn't come from revenge, but from resilience. She knew that real power doesn't need a spotlight. It shows up when no one's watching. Like that day, she stood up alone and changed everything. Within just a few months, Hartwell International had become a model for inclusion and human-centered leadership. News outlets started running stories, but Olivia's face wasn't in any of them. And that was intentional. She didn't want to be a celebrity. She wanted to be a bridge. She wanted every Olivia, working in kitchens and storage rooms, in cleaning closets, to know their talents mattered. That you don't have to shout to be seen. That even quiet persistence always finds a way. The changes reached all the way to the shareholders, who approved a new company motto, "See beyond the resume." And no one thought it was over the top, because they all knew what it meant. A permanent reminder that inside every person, there's a story. And ignoring those stories is a waste no company can afford to make. Olivia continued her life, now with a deeper sense of purpose. Still living simply, but smiling more. Fully aware of the path she'd walked. She knew her achievement hadn't come easy. It had been built on sleepless nights, old books, and doors that never opened. But it was real, and no one could take that from her. When people asked what her greatest accomplishment was, she'd answer, "Believing in myself when no one else did." And that, deep down, said it all. Because this is a story about the power of faith. About effort with no audience. About victories that don't need applause. It's the story of a woman who, in silence, saved a company. And maybe, more than that, forever changed the way people see each other. And every now and then, Benjamin still watches her from afar, eyes a little misty. Because he knows that day, he didn't save Olivia. Olivia saved him. Leave a comment below. Have you ever been underestimated because of your job or how you look? Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. https://www.youtube.com/@SEUcanal. Like the video if you believe no one should be judged by the uniform they wear or the role they play. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Share this video with someone who needs a little inspiration today.